Hello and welcome to Focus Hoops show. We are going to be joined by Pablo Cheeks, the Plymouth Raiders commentator, host of Below the Rim podcast. And hey, if you like yourself some fantasy basketball, and frankly, what are you doing if you don't like fantasy basketball? He is your guy to go to. We're going to get his Twitter tags, all of that stuff, so you can follow him, you can get involved, get on the boards over with the Fantasy BBL 360. If you want to see some fantasy basketball news, this is your guy. Pablo, how are you doing today?
Good man. Yes, I'm all right. How are you? This is awesome. I'm on the other end of being quizzed. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been on with you a few times on various projects of yours, and of course we work together. We're colleagues in Below the Rim and all of that carry on. But how are you enjoying being on the other side? Must be quite easy for you today.
I thought I'd be more relaxed. I feel a little bit nervous. It's different. I'm out of control, which is weird.
I'm not sure if I'm in control. So basically, shall we explain to people how we know each other first? How we came into.
Well, it was my introduction to having a media pass with the BBL. Was the first time we crossed paths, and you basically very kindly held my hand through the process of being a media. The playoff finals at the O2, I had no idea what I was doing. I was well out of my depth, and you were there, sat with you. We watched the entire game. Obviously, the women's final first, which was exceptionally good. The men's final, which was a bit of a gap, and then it kind of went from there, didn't it? You came on was the FBBL podcast at that stage. You came on that, and the rest is history.
And the rest, yeah, media vet over here.
You went into the press conferences and everything, didn't you? I was too scared. I didn't do that.
Oh, press conferences are fun. I like press conferences. I've just been in one with the Las Vegas Aces, and they're fun. Nice. You get to ask people things.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that then.
So, yeah, that was an awkward one because Janice Monacana, in the pregame, I was talking to Lions coach Andrea, and I was saying, do you know what? I see Leicester Riders, sweeping both games. I think I've got a feeling that they're going to win both games. Not a strong feeling, not very confident in this, but I don't know. Janice Monacana turns around and just goes, "Oh, is that right? That's rude, That's rude." I'm like,
to be fair, you weren't. It wasn't a bad shout. It was a close game.
It was a close game. And I mean, Janice, man, she was outrageously good that day. MVP, absolutely. I mean, she turned that final on its head. Like, Darren was on to being correct, as he is about so many things. And then Janice Monacana just went, nope. No, she was fantastic. And then I'm sat in the press conference room, and I'm sat in front of the winners bit. And who walks in, who sat directly in front of me, it's Janice Monacana. And she's like, I remember you. But no, and Janice is a very, very wonderful human being. Was very, very nice to me afterwards, gave me a really great interview. And I've spoken to her since at Lions. So I think it's good. But she's great. We want to get her on the Focus Hoop show going forward. But yeah, how did you enjoy being courtside at a game? Because obviously most games you attend these days, you're up in the lighting box or something. What is your position there?
It is. It's right up the top at the back of the smaller stand. So we're kind of, I can almost touch the camera that's bolted to the ceiling. We're that kind of high up. But to be fair, I've always I say always, not at the beginning. At the beginning, I was in the thick of it. But since going to the Raiders, and I'm a fan by proximity, if you like. They're the closest team, and they're a really good setup. And I very often sit at the back at the venue, and just because it's such a, I mean, when you watch it on TV, you don't really get the full gist of it. It's they black out the spectators area. You're kind of sitting in darkness, and there's spotlights on the court. So almost the further away you sit, the more of a spectacle it becomes. If you see what I mean. So I very often sit on the back anyway, but that's the commentary position. You can pretty much see everything except the bottom right-hand corner where there's a massive speaker and monitor set piled up. I can't. If someone shoots from the corner, I've got no chance. I don't know who it is until they're running back.
And you guys don't have monitors, do you?
No. BBL sent a laptop out which was meant to have that kind of facility on it, but we don't have any of that, unfortunately. But it's a good viewpoint and it's a good venue. The crowd's always busy there as well.
It doesn't come across on TV as well how brilliant an arena that is. And I've not been there myself yet, but I've seen pictures from you, and I've seen recently pictures from different angles courtside, and it's high on my list. I want to get there before your mob get a proper arena. You know, there we go, proper arena.
Well, it's on it's on the cards. Their own standalone venue. I think obviously with the new owners, that's helping quite a lot because it's not cheap, that kind of thing. Although I think it was helped along a little bit where the council there have invested a lot of money into a new ice hockey team and a massive ice rink arena, which kind of annoyed some of the Raiders guys because they've wanted their own venue for a while now, but they are quite happy with pavilions because, like you say, it's a real spectacle, and a lot of the guys that come and play, even visiting players, say it's kind of the closest thing to playing in the States. That atmosphere, the PA system's second to none because obviously it's a music venue. They have gigs there and all that kind of stuff. So the sound of it is incredible. The bass goes right through you, and you kind of yourself think sometimes when you're trying to commentate on a game, but it's worth coming to have a look. We'll put you up as well. We've got room in the house. You can come and stay with us for a weekend.
In a post-runner world, that sounds delightful. So where do you start with basketball then?
I think I was about 9 or 10 years. We're talking about 1989, 1988, 89, and it's obviously at that age you haven't got your own transport or anything like that. You're reliant on your parents. I think it was a guy at my dad's work said, take your kid down to this Worthing Leisure Centre, which is in Durrington, weirdly, and have a look at this because it's there's a lot of American guys. It's really entertaining, and we went. And funnily enough, Mum and Dad always said they didn't really like the first time we went, and didn't really intend to go back again. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And we're talking Worthing Bears, we're talking Dale Shackelford, Ronnie Baker, Brian Heron, Mark Hubbard, players like this. And they I think the first season I really watched was the first season they were in the BBL because they didn't go straight into the BBL when it started. They pretty much walked it in the NBL. They won, having not lost a single game in the 88 season, and a guy called Billy Hunrecker scored I think it was 72, 73 points in the semi-final against the Plymouth Raiders to get to the final, and then they jumped up to the BBL, and that is literally where it started. It just loved it from then on. We went for any weekend we had free because I was a swimmer at the time. Even at 9 years old, I was swimming at the time. I was in an Olympic hopefuls squad. My hometown in Brighton Hove, swimming for Shiverers. So any free weekend that had a Worthing Bears home fixture, we were there, and that's kind of where it started, and it just went on from there. It's quite lucky. I was thinking the other day, I was quite lucky really, because some people, they follow a team and they don't, they have a modicum of success. They do okay in the league, in the cup competition or the trophy competition, but that kind of era with Worthing, I got to see some of the best players that played in the BBL, but not only that, we won everything except the trophy pretty much when Alan Cunningham came to town in 91-ish. So I got to see all that, which is not something that every basketball fan in this country gets to see. But there you go. Yeah, it was. I don't know about you. I don't want to flip it and start asking you questions, but a lot of people I speak to and talk to in terms of basketball, they saw the NBA first. The NBA was the first thing they saw. And then the secondary thought, oh, I wonder if there's a league in Great Britain, and looked at it that way. Whereas mine was very much the other way around. Bears were number one team, and then started looking at Chicago Bulls. Obviously, they were televised a lot because of MJ in the UK particularly, and that was kind of the second team thing. But I don't know if that's the same with you.
No, well, mine's different to yours because, growing up in North Wales, I don't know if I've mentioned it. I'm from North Wales. We didn't have basketball. Like, that just kind of wasn't a thing. I had a basketball hoop in my garden. I had like this battered grey Team USA ball. And that was what basketball was for me. I'd never saw it on TV. As a kid, I watched baseball, ice hockey, obviously football, big United fan. As a kid, no longer really. And played rugby. So no, basketball didn't really feature on my radar until secondary school. And then I started, playing the video games, playing it in PE, watching the Celtics like on the internet where I could. So no, I took I don't know if it's a more traditional route into it in this country, unfortunately, because I think the BBL is a wonderful league and it's a great league for people to get involved in, get invested in, especially if you've got a local team. But if, like me, you just didn't, like Chester Jets might as well have been, on the other side of the universe.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of like I said with the Raiders, it's kind of by proximity whether or not you can actually go to a live game without too much hassle. I was lucky that way as well that Worthing was only 20 minutes up the road. I swam in Worthing, I played water polo in Worthing, and that was kind of the next not the next step, but that was it was there to go and watch, and it was being a town that had this like team in it, particularly when Alan Cunningham came and took the team onto the next level. It was something that, like, now, if I want to talk about basketball, I'm talking to you, and you're miles away from where I am, and I'm talking to Greg and Mikey and Josh and the guys and Ads and that, and I don't really talk to anybody in my sort of day-to-day life about basketball. Whereas back then, there'd be a load of us that would go from my school, which was in Brighton, and I mean, it's like I said, it's about 20 minutes to Worthing. But there'd be a load of us that would go. We'd get in a couple of cars and just go watch the Bears, and we'd be talking about it for the entire week.
Yeah,
and then, that kind of thing, kind of what the game needs now, really. I mean, it probably does have in certain areas, but
I mean, I know with my circle of friends in my work and all of that, we do talk basketball a bit. A lot of it's because I won't shut up about it, and they're like, "This guy again," and I'm like, "Let me tell you." But no, we have done, when time allows, done the same. Like, all right, let's all mob down to, and it tends to be London, it tends to be the Lions when we used to do that, and then obviously I transitioned into talking and writing and commentating basketball. But this is why I would love to see the league try and expand further. The 12 teams is nice, but to have more top level programs around the country is just going to give more people more access, more opportunities to go and watch what is this fabulous sport of ours. And I'm really excited about the prospect of that happening on a bigger scale. So it was Worthing, which you never fail to mention in a podcast, and I respect that, frankly. And then it wasn't. Then the Bears.
Then it was Brighton. Yeah,
then it was Brighton. That's right.
Yeah, it's nearer to me, which was handy. It was less of a journey. Parking was more expensive though in Brighton, but there you go. You take the rough with the smooth. But we were bad. They were a bad team. I think it must have been about 11 or 12. I used to go and play and train with the Worthings, like under six. They didn't kind of have the same development systems they had then. They had a number of kind of little pockets around East Sussex, which were Bears run coached, and Dale Shackelford and Gary Chicken Smith were kind of the two guys that were coaching around to begin with. You fan of the chicken?
Yeah, I am. What's that about?
I think it's to do with his legs. He had rather skinny legs, and he was known as Gary. I don't know if that's true. I should maybe a disclaimer, but Gary Chicken, I used to like him, so he's a good player.
Gary Chicken.
So I started playing when I was kind of younger, up to under 16, but had to sort of make a decision. Actually, weirdly, and I've never said this to him, but we've done a number of podcasts with Steve Nelson. who obviously Bears. He played for a number of teams, Kingston, Sunderland, but made a real impact with the Bears and was a big part of the three-peat with the Bears. And I'm trying to think how old I was. I think I'd just started at uni. So they were still in Worthing at that time. And I was playing basketball at uni. I was swimming at uni. I was also swimming for Worthing, and I was playing water polo for Worthing. And I was playing water polo for Sutton and Cheam because they had a National League team, and I wanted to play National League as well. So I was doing a lot of, and something had to give. And the basketball was kind of not new, but I was starting at the bottom and working up through it. And I can remember going to the Worthing Aqua Arena. Anybody who's watching knows where that is. It's not there anymore. It's been levelled and it's now a massive block of flats. In the basement of there, they had a gym. And in that gym, the Bears players used to come and intermittently would come and use that gym. I think they used the David Lloyd as well, which was a bit nearer for them. But Steve, I went down in the change. I was a bit late for training, and I run down to the change rooms in to get changed. And Steve Nelson was there getting changed, and it was real kind of starstruck back then. They were more celebrities, I guess, and it was like, oh my God, it's Steve Nelson. And I sort of was quiet at first, and then I started to talk to him and said, he obviously saw me looking like, that's Steve Nelson, and he's probably a little bit like, who the God's sake, who's this guy? Please just say something. And I started talking to him, and I said I played basketball and I like playing basketball, but it's getting a bit much with playing water polo. And he gave me a bit of advice that made me stick with swimming and water polo as opposed to playing basketball. He said, you've got to go where your talents lie. And I'd already made it pretty high in the water polo thing. So I stuck with that. And it's his fault because I couldn't play basketball. Not any good, probably, but it's his fault. But that was Steve Nelson. He stuck with the club through quite a lot, to be fair, because we were pretty bad. Like you say, we moved to Brighton, and in the Brighton centre, it was all sort of bells and whistles. We still weren't very good, but then of course along came a certain gentleman who's now in the NBA, Mr. Nick Nurse, and the glory years were kind of back again. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
So how, like, we talk about it a lot on the Below the Rim podcast, and go back and check out a bunch of those. But we talk about like the arena years, or was it the Budweiser years?
I think they went through a number of different things. It was Haribo for a bit. It was Budweiser. It was Carlsberg. I think Carlsberg might have been the kind of big, like when you see the shots of the MEN arena, and it might not have been the MEN actually, or the NIA and the NEC, and it's packed. So there's like 9,000-10,000 people there for a league game, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it was the Carlsberg kind of era more. But I mean, they were filling like places like the Royal Albert Hall and stuff like that for games. It was crazy times, and Wembley was always packed as well. But that Brighton Centre, actually, if you listen, I'll plug another podcast on your podcast.
Go on.
It's terrible, but I can't fully remember the name. It's the Hub one, Basketball Hub, is it? I think I can't remember. They had Sterling Davis on recently, and he just said how. And I wasn't sure what other players' opinions of it were going to be, but he said how like the Brighton Centre was one of the best venues in the BBL. They packed in nearly 5,000 people every week, and it was just ruckus. And obviously, it was a better team when Sterling Davis was playing, and we were actually winning stuff. But the arena kind of era of it was, I mean, it was like NBA. Obviously, it was our NBA, so it wasn't as big. But like even in the Worthing Bears days when we weren't good, you had to queue up for an hour and a quarter just to get a decent seat. Brighton Centre was just as much. You're queuing out around the corner up by McCluskey's and the Event, which were two bars and nightclubs where the players used to congregate afterwards. But it was crazy. It was like it was. I think by the Brighton Bears time you could book online, which made a difference. But even then, it was busy, and it was always on TV. It was always on Meridian. I think it was the local ITV's sort of local network, Meridian. It was always on. Yeah, which I've always said is the BBL could do with a kind of terrestrial home of some sort, even if it's just like a half-hour show a week, just to.
I mean, that would be mega. Like we're talking about, and for some reason it keeps going out my brain, but my first interaction with the BBL would have been trophy finals. because it was always on BBC. I always remember, and it's one of those parts of my brain that's always like linked with the African Cup of Nations. So it would be like, oh, there's basketball, Birmingham, cool. Oh, Cameroon versus Nigeria, cool. You know, it's just in the same part of my brain. And but yeah, I being back on TV regularly would do wonders for it. Like we were on, I say our league was on Red Button for a good few seasons. Last 2 seasons before this one, which was great. It was the Red service is actually really poor. Like, do better, BBC. Why is your service so slow? But it was really good to be able to just be like, boom. There's Plymouth versus London Lions, and the women's game playing at 5:30 though. That's just insulting. Like on a Friday, but at least it was giving that a bit better exposure, I suppose.
Yeah.
And seeing one of Ash Harris's best ever games against the Lions, she was unreal that day.
I've always thought as soon as Grandstand finished, that was kind of almost the death of minority sports, because they would always have a home on Sunday Grandstand. There would always be some obscure sport that you'd see for half an hour and think, well, that was good, I'll give that a try, that kind of thing. And it always had a bit of a place there. It always had, whether it was a cup or a trophy final, or just a league game, just highlights from a league game or something, just for half an hour. It would have.
Yeah, again, I remember watching Dan Routledge commentating on Eurosport, which for me is the best channel. And just random games just showing up randomly on Eurosport, but just some sort of exposure to the league. So no. Let's talk about the biggest game in Brighton Bears history. The one with Rodman.
Dennis, the one with Dennis the man. The three games with Dennis.
3. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 3.
Well, the first one was an eye-opener for Dennis because it was at Burgess Hill Leisure Centre, which is, there's so many lines on the floor. I don't know what he thought he was doing, playing volleyball or badminton or what, but that was a spectacle in itself. The big one was the Brighton Centre one, which I went to the 2 that were at home because the next one then was away. I think it was at Guildford Heat. It might have been London. I can't remember. But the Brighton Centre one was it was unreal. It was, they very often, like these venues, it's very much like pavilions, really. The Brighton Centre, it's essentially a stage venue where they host music gigs. I've seen Tenacious D in there twice. Comedy gigs. I saw Ricky Gervais in there as well, and Victoria Wood is a bit of a contrast for you.
Oh, yeah.
But it's got different stages. So very often for Bears games, they'd open the bottom tier, which was still massive. For the bigger games and for the TV games, they'd open the top tiers and they'd fill it up. For Dennis, they opened every single bit of it possible, and they put extra rows behind. They put extra rows at the side. They had VIP sections all the way down one side as well. It was insane. They did the foam hands, which was the first time we'd ever in the BBL. Well, that I'd experienced anyway, had a foam finger with your team's name on it and a big sponsor on the other side. That was pretty cool. Big posters. I bought myself a jersey as well. It was awesome. Just a really amazing spectacle. And the guy was probably the most athletic guy on the court. He was up and down. He grabbed rebounds. At the Brighton Centre, I think he got a stupid amount of rebounds. I think he averaged 13 rebounds a game, but like 25 in one game, or so. It was something ridiculous like that. And it was
this his Big Brother time when he went on Big
just
Brother
after he'd just come out of Big Brother.
Oh, okay.
Because there were rumours that there was a number of teams trying to get in London with London Towers. I think it was at the time were trying to get him. The Leopards might have been knocking around as well. And obviously Nick Nurse, the charismatic man that he is, came up with the goods. I think it was 25 grand a game, and here he was.
25 grand a game.
I think it was something like that, yeah. And the Bears got into trouble because he put them over the limit for US players. So we had too many overseas players because obviously Dennis was now on the roster. Andrew Laney, I think, was ditched for one of the games, which annoyed him because obviously the Bears were were always up and around the top of the league, fighting for something, fighting for playoff spots, fighting for the championship. So it wasn't accepted that well, I don't think, among the team and the hardened sort of fans who realised we'd drop points and whatnot. But it was fun. Yeah, it was good. And when you read back, actually, if you ever read, there's a few articles around. One was on the Evening Argus, which was a local paper in Brighton, but it's online, where Nick Nurse his reasons for doing it were quite kind of deep, really. When you look at the grander picture, he wanted to show people this guy is a global superstar and is a basketball player, and our players are at this level, and this guy hasn't played for, I don't know how many years he hadn't played for at that stage.
When was it? 2006?
2000, around then, 2004, 2005, something like that. Yeah, 2006 the Bears finished.
Oh, okay.
Which was very sad. That's why I've got gaps in my basketball knowledge. I've got big gaps. I stopped watching the NBA when Michael Jordan retired. Felt very sad. And it was a really weird sort of relationship with basketball.
You stopped watching the NBA because Michael Jordan retired?
I did. It was really weird. I felt like it wasn't really worth watching. And it's obviously not kind of true. It's a weird kind of relationship when you're watching a team that you kind of love and a player that you idolize, everybody idolized. I think there's a number of people probably did the same thing.
Yeah, probably.
And the Bulls were, pretty dire without him anyway, so that was a tough watch. But I had the Bears, so I watched the Bears, and then when the Bears stopped, I was absolutely gutted, and I don't think I watched British basketball for a few years after that. Any basketball. Obviously came back to it because here we are now.
This is why you don't have the level of respect required for Paul Pierce and his Hall of Fame career, because you missed a chunk of his growth, his development, and his Hall of Fame career. So anyway, moving on. Now you're the voice of Plymouth. So when did the fantasy stuff? When did you start allow basketball back into your heart and get back involved?
Probably when the Bulls signed Derrick Rose. He drafted him. And
what was that, 2008?
2008 or 2009, and things looked a bit exciting then, and it was kind of, here we go. I perked up a little bit, and in terms of what I was doing otherwise, my water polo stuff was really kind of quite heavy. I was coaching and playing and trying to get in and out of GB squads and doing all that kind of stuff. It took a lot of time. So I didn't have a lot of time for much else, and then it was definitely that kind of when the Bulls hit the jackpot with the lottery, literally, and picked up Derrick Rose. I kind of started watching stuff again. I started watching those. I think it was it must have been on my Xbox or something. You could download the NBA app, and if you didn't subscribe, you could still watch the 2-minute highlight stuff they would put out, and I just started watching that daily and got back into it. And living in Brighton, there wasn't a BBL team, so I didn't even really look at BBL stuff. There was, like you say, there was the Red Button games. I'd often pick up a Raiders game because they were often on Red Button, being one of the best teams in the country, obviously, and Eagles as well. So the momentum kind of gathered, and then we talked about as a family. We got married, and we had a couple of kids and that, and we talked about moving west, and I very much had my heart set on Plymouth because I knew they had a BBL team and I wanted to get back into it and start watching again, and that was about 5 years ago now, and here we are. And then you kind of the whole podcast thing, I started off, one of the big things getting back into basketball in a general sense and wanting a roundup show, something to tell me what's been going on, was the starters. It was what were they first? The Basketball Jones podcast. It was first, with Skeets and Tass and Trey and Lee and all those guys, and then they got hired by the NBA and it became the starters. And I just was an avid fan of that, just consuming everything they put out. They were debating the plays of that week and the games of that week, and just got really interested in that. We moved to Plymouth, and I started following the Raiders and started thinking, well, I'd like to hear this kind of stuff about British basketball because it's exciting stuff, and there's good players, there's really good competition, there's good games, and and then I discovered Bill Simmons, and then I just wanted to be the British Bill Simmons. Simple as that, really. Turns out it's harder than he makes it look, but there you go.
I don't think you're not takey enough for me.
No, I'm more of a Zach Lowe.
Yeah, well,
he was another one. I really, really like Zach Lowe. He's very
his work's the best work in the world. Like
non-confrontational and
yeah.
He likes a stat, and I like a stat. Although on Twitter recently, that's obviously not a popular opinion. Although I stand by it. It's
not popular because you're wrong. Like that's it. That's it. That's it. Like what are you doing?
Listen, we can get to that if you want. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute because your first. So this was your first full season of commentary. Your first full season. Yes. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. So how have you enjoyed it? How have you found it?
I loved it. Love every minute of it. I wish I'd found kind of media related stuff a lot sooner because I'm old now and I've got other commitments and it's really difficult to. Well, you know how difficult it is just to create content, and we haven't had a lot of stuff go out lately. I've been, work's tough and that, but it's a highlight of the week when I know I've got a game coming up. You do your research, you have a look at your players, you get on Real Basketball GM, you get on Dave Owens, and you look up you look up players and you look up stats, and you send a little DM to Dan Routledge and ask if there's any milestones coming up in this next game, and it's awesome. It's great. I really, really love it, and really grateful to Richard Mollard, who was I had him on the FBBL podcast before, and had Dante Nicholas on a number of times, in his impressive season, a couple of seasons ago now, wasn't it? Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 seasons ago, I suppose.
And Richard, I originally was kind of Richard Mollard's co-commentator. So I was just kind of there, co-running the play-by-play, giving input, giving stats and that kind of thing. And then he decided I should take it on and do it so that he could do other things. And it's me and Phil now. I love it. It's just awesome. It's a real buzz. And I've got to be honest, I thought I would I don't get nervous at all for it. I cannot wait. It's just really cool. And I'm saying all this now.
Do you never get nervous?
Weirdly, I played water polo for about 25 years, and I don't think I ever got nervous I never got nervous for a game. I trained hard, I worked hard, and I knew I'd done enough. But if I did a swimming gala, I would be sick 2 or 3 times before a race, and I couldn't do it. I just could not do it. I don't know what it is that I used to get nervous for individual competition. Hated it. Couldn't stick it. But I don't know. I don't get nervous before. I guess in the back of my mind, I think no one's really going to be watching. Why is anybody watching? No one's really going to be listening to me. Why would anyone listen to me? I'm just going to have fun with it. Just go with it. And got a bit down. Well, in the group chat, I got a bit down. I think I'd done 2 or 3 games, or maybe even 2 games as the lead commentator, and we got a bit of bad feedback on the chat that goes up on the YouTube thing. And I felt. I didn't get nervous. I just felt really I just felt sad. I just was like, oh, okay. So, but then it wasn't constructive feedback, but it ended up being constructive feedback because I tried to kind of liven up my voice a little bit on that because it can be a bit boring. But I just love it. It's just like I said, it's the highlight of the week. Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely, it's the best thing. It's the best thing in the world. I absolutely love it. God, it's so good.
Nothing like it. I really, really hope that I can do it next season for the Raiders because I know they've got a lot going on, and there's obviously they've got the extra funding, so they can probably afford someone a bit than me. Not that I get paid, of course. Yeah, but we'll see. Hopefully,
thinking about like the nerve element of it. I remember my first national league final that I did not on my own, but as the lead. So I'd spent all the day before, did four games, as an analyst, and then the next day I was commentating Anglia Ruskin, Reading Rockets, and I was sat there and I had my script, and I was so nervous, man. I was just there, like, kind of not freaking out, but like I was just like, can I do this? Can I do this? And I was just like, got up, went for a wander, bumped into Ishmael Fontaine, had a really nice chat with Ish, wandered back, and was just there like, basketball, is it? It was great. It's so good. But yeah, I'm good for you. Like, good for you not getting nervous before games and anything. Because I know the first game I do next year, I'm going to be like.
Yeah. Well, man, I've seen your notes are meticulous. Your notes are flawless.
I could. There's always room to improve with those, but yeah, I can't be one of them people that doesn't go in there with anything. And obviously, the prep for a BBL game versus National League game versus National League men's game, it's different because you have different opportunity and availability to stuff. But
sure,
people I've worked with have been really good, and I really enjoy that fortnight before a game where you're watching like film and you're talking to people and you're saying like, do you see this? Because I don't know what I'm seeing. I'll get onto you, I'll be like, oi, index boy, give me some noise. So you've been getting into it with people, and we're not going to name names because we're not going to give them, they don't have a right of reply here, but you think PJ sees all that, do you? You think he's the guy?
This is the thing. Now, it was a tweet, a question, and rightly so. Justin Robinson is, over the last, has he been in it 3 years? And even if you look at him, he's one of the best point guards. You know, he deserves to kind of be in the discussion when you start talking about the best point guards that have been in the BBL.
Yeah.
When you start talking about Alton Birds, Ronnie Baker, Randy Ducks, Russ Saunders, players like that, he's definitely up there. But I think I mean, looking back at how I tweeted, I didn't mean it as a knock at all. But last season, he's my answer to the question was he's up there, definitely 100%. Yeah. Justin Robinson is up there. But last season, I felt it was a bit harsh to overlook Parker Jackson Cartwright and just how exceptional of a season he had, and I thought he was the number one point guard last season.
I mean, he was MVP, or at least he was the media MVP.
He was the
Did the league give out MVP last year?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But yeah, he was the Basketball Journalists Association MVP, and it's fair. He was excellent. Absolutely excellent. Yeah, that's the funny thing, and it is like, to me, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm diving in there. Yeah, JR. Because for me, if I'm starting and we had the question, if we're starting a franchise, who are you taking? And it's like, I'm taking JR, but I don't want to use the word bias because it isn't quite, but I've got that familiarity. I've literally watched him live more than I've ever seen PJC play in his life. Do you know what I mean? And obviously I've spoken to JR a fair amount over the years. So I've got an idea of his game and his temperament, his off court and everything, like the whole package. He is a British superstar. And I kind of wish in the recent years, I think he should have been in the GB squad a little bit more than he was. Like, he was here and there. I think he could have played a much bigger role. That's not on him. I think, there are great GB guards all over Europe. I just think it would have been really fantastic to see a bit more of JR in that picture.
Absolutely.
But it's a conversation. But, it is what it is.
But it wasn't, I felt, people seem to take offense to it, but I think it's because maybe it felt like I was attacking his legacy or something. The last 2 seasons where he's been MVP, he's just been phenomenal. And the situations at the Lions this season, it was a little bit It was different. They had obviously more of a spotlight maybe on Ovi. A deep team, very deep team, bringing in Boy Touch, and obviously they've got probably the best role players in the history of the BBL with Andre Lockhart and Joey Kinwin. They just will do what they have to do week in, week out. It's a phenomenal team. But it was a bit weird. Like Brandon Peel was really good one week, and then Ovi was good. It was just a weird feel, and maybe that affected it. But I mean, looking at PJC, and it's a different situation. He's obviously the star player on that team, and he's got a lot more to do. But I didn't feel like he should be penalised for that, the same way Justin Robinson shouldn't be penalised for having to share the ball more. It's kind of swings and roundabouts. But the thing that really got me was it was Ishmael to ask me what had Parker Jackson Cartwright done better than Justin Robinson last season. So I just listed the stats because that's there in black and white. That's what you do. He scored more. He got more assists. He got more steals. He's higher index. He's higher efficiency. And then you get told you can't use stats. And I'm like, well, then it's subjective, isn't it? It's how you translate what you've seen. And I have watched all games, and my opinion is an opinion. And obviously, then you've got no leeway because everybody's opinion can be different, and that's absolutely fine. I respect that. But I will say to the people that say you can't use stats, the 2 times Justin Robinson's been MVP, his index and efficiency stats have been in the top 3 or the top 5 of the entire BBL.
Yeah.
So whether or not he cares about stats, he cares about winning.
Yeah.
In doing that, you're going to accumulate good stats because you're playing well, and it correlates. There's no question. It correlates. If you look through the back of the history of the BBL's MVP, it's very often the player on the best team or the best 2 teams in the league with the highest index or efficiency, and that relates. And the only other way I could think of that was because you put it in the group text: winners don't care about stats; they care about winning.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest? One of the biggest winners, kind of in the history of basketball, other than Bill Russell, obviously, is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan couldn't give a. I was going to swear them. I'm not going to.
I appreciate that.
He couldn't care less about stats. However, he tops the stats charts. That's just how it works. That's just how it is. Yeah. And Justin Robinson's 2 MVP years, he was up there for stats. He wasn't last year, and it was a different feel, and I just felt PJC was better. That's but fair. Only one season. That was it. That was I'm not stepping on. And like you said, Justin Robinson couldn't care less what I'm saying because who am I? But that's my opinion.
Oh, that's fair. What I want to do, and Ishmael, if you are watching this, mate, and I assume you are because you consume everything on British basketball. It's really impressive, actually. Let's have this as a show. The Pablo Ishmael 5. I just want to know what your 2 5s are and hear the conversation between you because it could be money. Look at this.
How far are we going back?
What a new show. I don't know.
Because I mean, I'm a fountain of knowledge.
We know that you go back to like the foundational years of like the 1940s basketball. Like, you'll be going back to like. Well, when the game was first played in the YMCA in Liverpool, I think you'll find.
I found a program.
Jenkins.
I found a program the other day of the best game I ever saw was Worthing Bears against the Kingston Kings, and at that stage, the Bears had never beaten the Kingston Kings in a. I don't think. Well, they would have beaten them in the NBL, but they hadn't beaten them in the BBL, and it was the first time they ever beat them. And the Kingston Kings team was one of the best ever assembled. I've done a number of things regarding best players of all time, but going back when I first started doing this, I think a couple of years back, with Dan Routledge going through the best players in BBL history. And I think at one time or another, at least 5 of them were playing for Kingston Kings that night. So we had Alton Bird, Alan Cunningham was there, Russ Saunders was there. I don't think Martin Clark was there, but Martin Henlon was more than likely there. Trevor Gordon was there. Some all-time players, and we beat them. But it's all Because I'm not sure how far back Ish would go, but I know he's a bit of a student of the game.
He'd go back a ways. Like the guy has read up on the game. Credit to him. Also, he's going to be a regular on the FocusHoops WNBA show, so get ready for that. He's mostly going to spend the time hyping up the Washington Mystics, I think, and I'm excited for that. I'm here for it. He's
awesome. I think the guy is he's awesome.
Yeah, I think he is, and I think he's a brilliant advocate for the league. And the same with Lucas or Lou30 on Twitter. I think he's actually a really great advocate for people as well. We had him. I did a show with those two. You can see it back on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, just talking about going to college versus staying here, and all the conversations going on around that. I'll tell you one thing that I think has come out that's been relatively positive from this very strange period is there are a lot of conversations now about the health of the game, the state of the game, what things can be done to improve. And then we get, some foolishness like what we saw on Twitter in a conversation that just became JR PJC. I didn't see any other names get mentioned, and I found that's kind of bizarre. But there we are. I think Fletcher actually did get a little bit of a mention.
I saw a good one at the top of it, yeah.
I saw a good one today.
Kyron Cartwright was good as well.
He was really good. He was really good. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. Underrated players. I saw that one come out today from, I think it was BBL Fix.
He's doing some good stuff, BBL Fix, yeah.
And so as the stats guy, who's the index guy going under the radar? Who jumped out to you?
Well, in the past, my stock answer for that has been Louis Sayers. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
he's a guy that doesn't necessarily rack up stats, although he can do. But he's a solid. I mean, he doesn't look any particular size, but he can guard pretty much any position. He's quick on his feet. He's strong under the basket. He's long and rangy. He can shoot threes. And he's kind of a plug and play guy. He can go into any situation, and that's kind of been my stock answer, I think, for the last couple of seasons. But last season,
I wonder if you can see him. I wonder if he could run a team.
I'm not sure. I don't know if he would work like that. I'm not sure if he can take it on his shoulders, if you like. But
yeah.
As a complementary player, he's definitely. I mean, he's been at the Raiders and he was exceptional at the Raiders. He just, it was not a great team he was a part of, but the Cheshire team, he was a big part of that, and they had a good run.
He's just thinking about like the Manchester rebuild, because obviously we spoke about Manchester on the pod a few weeks ago. What a player he'd be for Manchester! I think he'd be a real exceptional signing.
Because, like you say, he's one of those. He's just so versatile. He's a forward, but he can play as a guard. He can play, pretty much as a four, really. Although it's probably unconventional, but he's strong enough. Grabs more rebounds than you think as well. He can fight for a board. Yeah, I'd have to look. I'd have to get the index list up just to refresh my memory. Shout out to Orlan Jackman, by the way, because he wanted all the index stats when we were going through all the stuff on Twitter, and people were saying stats don't count. Orlan wanted them. He wanted to see where he was ranked.
And did you say CJ as well? CJ, he's probably just at the top. Like
CJ was, he retweeted it with kind of a weird face emoji, because he just was at the top of that list by a considerable way as well, by like. Yeah, 5 index points, I think.
He'd have been my pick for MVP this year. I thought when he in his rookie year he was well in the conversation for MVP.
Oh yeah, he was like number 2. He's always been in the top 5 for his index, his efficiency. He's always been up there. He scores, he gets rebounds, he defends. I'm just looking down. I don't think enough love is given to Lavelle Cook. On the whole, hype-wise, the guy, I mean, I think he shot 3-pointers at 50%, something like that. He was around the 50% mark for the majority of the season, and he chucked up a fair amount in clutch situations as well. He was a good solid, and I think he was more than just a facilitator. He was a key player on that Scorchers team. I really like Fred Thomas. I was gutted when he got injured.
Oh yeah, Fred. Yeah, I mean, Bristol had a really interesting roster going, and then obviously what happened with their injuries happened. By the way, this is what my commentary book looks like. It doesn't have the Scorchers game in it. That must be in the last one. For me, I would go as the. Sorry, I've got to stop moving the camera in the light. I'm not getting on my face. For me, I've got to say Boy Touch. He was only here for a short time, but he was here for a good time. And I don't know if enough is made of the fact that there's an ex-G Leaguer here ripping the rim. Well, not literally, but could have done probably. He's absolutely thrown it down with abandon, destroying my vocal cords. It was absolutely tremendous. He was such good fun. To see, I don't know if the Lions are going to be able to bring him back. I don't know if that's on the card. I'm leaning towards not, just because of the nature of things.
Sure, yeah. But
it would be great to see him for a full season, just to see what he could do. And I think he would be really high in the conversation for MVP, given his pedigree. He played, was it 60 games in the G League? It's just so high caliber. But I don't know. Don't hear a lot about him.
No. I'd like to have seen more of Gary Taunton as well. He came in for that one game against the Rocks. Another guy who's played multiple seasons in the G League, played multiple summer leagues, NBA summer league games, just really, really good. And his first game in the BBL, he kind of was observing more than anything else, just kind of trying to see how things were unfolding. But he just read the game at an incredible rate. It was awesome to watch. He was one step ahead every time. I like Levi Bradley as an underrated player coming off the bench for the Flyers. He's a solid player. But I've got to say, contradictory to my PJC comments and the backlash that's kind of surmounted from that, which actually, on a side note, I quite like general debate. I'm not keen on the aspect of Twitter where people take what you've written out of context and try and make you look like a fool, which really annoys me. But rather than a kind of one-for-one debate as to why someone's better than someone else, it just kind of turns into this weird situation where you find you're talking to someone who's trying to put themselves on a pedestal above you and make you look like an idiot. I'd rather just have a straight up debate. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather. I
know what you mean. I don't think Twitter's a good format for that. I think that's, unfortunately, you're asking it to do something that it isn't built for. It's not capable of, because there are, if we were to have this, and I kind of want to have this conversation actually, looking at top fives and blah blah. If we were to do it in this format, it would be good to be a little bit back and forth. You'd get a bit Stephen A, because I understand that's your gimmick, but it just is what it is, unfortunately. And that's the problem with that platform, just generally. And we're seeing it, with the horrible abuse that people get. I know it's a different story, but the horrible abuse people get on that platform. Not saying that we see that in the British game or the British discourse around basketball, but you're asking a fish to count, That's a terrible analogy, but I'm going to go with it. Stuff it.
But it's great that British basketball is being spoken about. But my contradictory point to that is Andrew Lawrence was the best player I saw this season, hands down. I know he obviously got injured early and didn't complete the rest of the season. It was mainly the cup that he played in, but he was phenomenal. They turned up at Plymouth with 6 players, I think.
Yes.
And he was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
Flo Larko that day, didn't you?
I can't remember, to be honest with you, but it was. I think Will Neighbour obviously knows Richard Mollard very well. I think he's living with him at the moment in lockdown.
Yeah, saw him in his enormous mop of hair. Working out with Deuce the other day.
He was he was. I mean, they were all. It was in disarray, wasn't it? The Royals at that stage. Nobody really knew what was going to happen from one week to the next, and amongst all that, I want to say controversy, but it probably wasn't even that much. Amongst all that confusion and nobody knowing what was going to happen, he was just unreal. And then when you look back at his resume, it's like, well, of course he's unreal. He's played Summer League. Yeah. He's played top level European competition. Of course he's amazing.
Yeah, he's been an absolute rock for the GB side for the last X amount of years. Yeah,
but he's the best player I saw this season.
Underrated as well, Rashad Hassan.
Somehow, class.
Absolutely.
He just quietly gets on with business.
Yeah.
Just, and I see him almost on a daily basis in town in Plymouth when I'm at work. No, not to talk to. I just see this huge figure in the distance with like boats on his feet, and he's very often carrying a carrier bag, which is not always a great look. But he's wandering the streets of Plymouth right now. And
well, I tell you what, you get on to Adam at Brand 161 and go and get him get him a bag or something if that's what you need to do.
But I'm one of these days. I'm gonna say hello to him. But it's good that he's sticking around. To be fair, it's
important for Plymouth. I think.
Well, he's one of those players. You're so lucky to have him because his ability is just. You're going to get 20 and maybe even because his rebound has not been amazing in the past. Last season it was way up there. I think it was up to 8-9 rebounds a game. So you're almost double from him. But you're getting 20 points a night.
Yeah,
if not more.
That's the real strength of his game, his scoring, and I think his footwork's pretty tidy as well.
Defensively, he's very good as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm pretty. Was he getting doubles at Lions? I can't quite remember now.
He may well have been. Yeah, he may well have been.
But it was
He's always near it, but his rebound game really went up. I mean, obviously personnel wise, we had, big changes at the Raiders throughout the entire season, and he really weirdly was one of the only big men that actually plays inside because Will Neighbour likes to drift out.
Yeah,
Ryan Richards likes to drift out. Leslie Smith even likes
Ryan
to
Richards.
Drift out.
Does he like to drift out, or does he just be out?
I'm not sure. I don't know. He seemed to like the kind of mid-range area, and then So Rashad Hassan's probably the only guy who gets down in the paint and mixes it up, and it's like you say, it's a bit overlooked because maybe it's because you're going to get 20 points from him.
I think it might be that in the same way that, and this is going to sound mad and not to drag over the coals, but I think in a way JR. Just Rumson is a little bit overlooked in a sense because you just know he's going to be fantastic and super reliable and get stupid number of points and just run an offense really effectively and efficiently and defend pretty well as well. Yeah. And you just sort of like take that a bit for granted.
He's underrated defensively, definitely. Yeah, because
like,
the bar's really high with these guys, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know like when I used to be courtside and writing match reports, I'd be like, all right, JR's doing his thing. Whoa, he's got a lot of points. And not in a oh, I've not noticed him. Like, where's he been? It's like, oh, he's just been there the whole time, but I've been just watching different things, and just because he's just going to be awesome, and other people are like, oh, what's this guy doing? And that's not to say he's not an exciting player because the stuff he does is
he's tremendous. Yeah,
I do enjoy watching basketball. I've got to say. Oh, speaking about enjoying watching basketball, go back and watch at least highlights of the WNBA finals from last year. A couple of
you sent me some, I think.
Game 4 in particular. Emma Miesemann's footwork you will enjoy. As an appreciator of big-ish players, you will enjoy her footwork and her 3-point range. She's unreal. Just that's a tip for Pablo, and this is just sort of broken into catch up with Pab. as much as it is for the viewing public. So how was it this year to commentate Plymouth? Obviously, it's your first year, but there was a lot of change and there was a lot going around the club. How did you prepare for that week on week? And just how did you feel just working through that?
It's a lot easier, I guess, for me in a sense that I am external from the club all week. I don't really interact with anybody, and I'm kind of left to my own devices. I'll look at who's been signed, who's coming in, and I get kind of a gist of who's going to be playing from Phil if needs be. obviously it's mainly on social media. You can see who's coming in, who's going. So research wise, it's kind of fairly straightforward. But it was a really weird time when it was all hush hush when they were going through the whole Bow Global stuff, getting this big Turkish conglomerate in, and Yuri, the owner or now owner, stumbling across Marjon's university training session, which PJ Paul James was coaching at the time, and then essentially just striking up a conversation with him and saying, I'm all in. I want in with this. I want to be involved with this club and moving forward. There was a lot of things we kind of couldn't say on the broadcast. We couldn't allude to the fact that this deal might be happening. We couldn't allude to the fact that there were rumours that players might be coming in. The Royals obviously had gone by this time, and there were players available, and there were rumours that Matt Scott was coming in. There were rumours that Will Neighbour was going to come in, because obviously he already had links with the club. Couldn't talk about that. You just kind of, I don't know, almost by being separate from it, it was kind of easier for me just to say, fair enough, I'll just, what I know, I will talk about.
Yeah.
But it was really exciting, especially that first game when it was released that Bell Global had taken over. I believe it's 60% of the club, I think, and investors were going to make this thing. Europe is kind of the target, getting the Raiders into Europe, playing in European fixtures, and the link we've got now with that club. That first night, the drinks were free, the programs were free. They were giving away T-shirts, scarves. It was just I think we lost on the night in the end, which was disappointing, but the kind of atmosphere around it was insane. And then off the back of that, we had Ryan Richards come in and various players. I think Matt Scott was already there, so there was already that kind of level of excitement. It felt really special. And I think from a commentary perspective, there was just a real buzz. I can't remember who we played in that first. It might have been Cheshire Phoenix in that first game. I'm not sure. We were up pretty big through the whole game, and then Parker Jackson Cartwright, I think he scored 12 in the last quarter and won the game for him. But it was awesome. But I mean, you know what it's like when you're trying to kind of gather your notes coming up to a game. Suddenly we've got Matt Scott and somebody else is having to leave that roster. We're not sure who it's going to be. It's likely one of the Bucks players. So you've got to have your notes ready for him just in case he's on the bench, because he's not likely to play. A bit chaotic. I'd say the worst thing of it is if I'm working that day. That's the hardest bit.
Yeah.
Because I'll work 6 till 6 and then I'll just leg it to the court, and thankfully everything's set up already, and I'll just kind of go straight into it. But it was fun. It was fun. It was a fun season. But it'd be nice for them to settle down next season and just sign, 10, 12 players, and we'll leave it at that.
I had that a few times with Lions games, but it was only ever like the one odd player coming in, like Ed Lucas. It was like, oh, we've signed Ed. It's like, thanks. You could have let me know like 2 hours ago. But But the lucky thing was, I always take all my notes with me from every game I've done. Ed hadn't played since the last time I'd commentated him. Glued it in, pretty stick and scissors, just in. There we go. I'm old school like that, and it works.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
The toughest one I had was a cup game. Yeah, cup game last season. Not last season, season before. And it was Worcester versus London City Royals in London City Royals. And the Worcester roster was like 1 million pages long. They had so many people that could have been in this game, where I was so I had notes for everybody that I could find, and there were some guys that there was just no information or little bits of information. And then I literally get to the court, I'm like, who have you guys brought today? Okay, cool. And I always get places as early as I can, so I'm there prepping beforehand. It's like, okay, cool. Not a fun situation to be in.
No. The Royals were a bit like that in the Cup. It was you didn't know who was going to be there 1 week to the next.
Well, they went out. Oh no, sorry, it must have been. No, it was Cup. It was a Cup fixture. Yeah. They went out first game, at home. That was tough. Have you done a solo broadcast yet?
No.
Oh, give me a buzz when you do.
The problem is I don't think I'd know when to shut up. At least when someone else there, I'll stop and let them talk.
Yeah.
And then ease back into it as the play develops. Whereas I'd be worried if it was just me that it would be like radio commentary. You wouldn't have to watch the game. I would just talk.
I would say for that one, and anybody listening, if you're not following Niall Gray, follow Niall Gray. He's fantastic. And yeah, speak to Niall Gray on that one, Pabs.
He's done some of the Scorchers ones.
Yeah, he does a lot of Scorchers.
He's good on the Scorchers ones where there's no one else with him. Bless him.
Yeah, he's a really good solo commentator. Because there's been a few times it's like, get Foxy alongside. He's like, no, I'm doing this one. You're okay. It's okay, kid. No worries. But yeah, it's good fun though. I enjoy doing solo commentary. So that's how I started out at Anglia Ruskin and Cambridge Cats and the Cambridge Cats women's team. They play local-ish league. And I was just there in the corner, just recording it into a headset. And that's how I got started. And then this season, last season was the first time. So my first BBL game was the first time I ever had a co-commentator. Yeah. So I was sort of thrown into it a little bit. Like I have to work with another person. How do I do this? And it was
a legend as well.
Yeah.
He is top 5, definitely.
You'll talk about the Lions.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, Gareth is fantastic, and now I've seen him a few times coaching because he used to coach the Bristol women's team, and yeah, so that was a good one for me. That was a bit of a baptism of like, I've got to bring this guy in, but it was great fun. That was a lot of fun. I was like, actually, it's quite nice having someone else in it.
Yeah.
So now at Anglia Ruskin, we always try and have at least 2 of us. Well, no, 2 of us. We don't have third mics. I don't believe in the 3-man booth.
3-man. I couldn't imagine that. Courtside, you want someone courtside? That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, the National League have brought that in a little bit this season, which has been really cool to see on their YouTube broadcasts.
Someone earwigging on the bench.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best. So that's what I love. I love the commentary, but it is really cool when you're courtside and you hear communication. And it's why I've been a little bit excited about the Premier League and sports leagues not having fans, because obviously the sport is, it's not the same at all. And like, we are fans of sport. That's why you and I do what we do. But it is interesting. Like from just a fascination point, it is really cool to hear players communicate.
No, absolutely.
In the WNBA finals last year, they had players mic'd up.
Did they?
A player and but it was like really subtle. So you'd be watching a broadcast, and we said about this last night, and there's just a play unfolding, and you'd hear, yeah, if you need. What? But it's just a commentary. So you got Rebecca Lobo just breaking down a play, and then you hear, foul, or and one, and really subtly underneath. It was genius. It's absolutely brilliant. The WNBA is a really innovative league in a number of ways. I think it's a great league, underappreciated.
Absolutely.
So I think we've spoken about everything that we wanted to speak about, and then you've derailed us talking about Twitter.
Sorry.
Quite all right. Is there anything you think we've missed there this evening?
Not that I can think of. Don't ask me that question. I could think of something.
I know you could. So all I need to say is, thank you so much for joining us, Pablo. Do you have anything to plug? Any podcasts? Anything like that? Any websites of yours?
I mean, go to fbbl.org. We're starting to assemble things for the second annual fantasy draft, which was incredibly exciting last season.
It was good fun.
We'll head in for the same kind of thing. We'll let the cup group competition, the group stages of the cup, play out first, so we kind of get an idea of some of the new signings in the BBL, which is what happened last time.
Are they still doing that? I thought they.
Well, I assume I didn't know if the cup. I assume the cup was staying as it was. If it's not, then we'll have we'll have a few weeks leeway, just as we know, so as we can get some kind of order of things, and we'll head up for the draft. I think there's 10 returning teams, and I know there's at least 5 guys who want to get on it, and some of the NBA guys, Mike Miller and Ginger Shaq, Dean, get on it as well. So. Yeah, ffbbr.org. Have a little look at that. See what you think.
And any podcasts that you're on or host?
We haven't done anything for ages, but just keep an eye on Below the Rim. We'll see what we can. Ads wants to do something. He's desperate to get on it. There's always something to talk about. It's probably going to be my opinions on Parker Jackson Cartwright, but whatever.
Probably. That sounds about right. Right. Well, I'm really excited for the Pablo special. Talk about Parker Jackson Cartwright for about 3 hours. That's our usual style over there. But here we keep things, to the point at Focus Hoops. So, Pablo, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really enjoyed this. Really appreciate talking to you. And for everybody,
thank you.
watching,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem, mate. Not a problem. And of course, thank you, everybody at home. Thank you for watching, and we'll speak to you very soon.